Who are we voting for? Meet the candidates. Who Are We Voting For was created so we could understand who the candidates are and what they are about. This is not an endorsement for any candidate. This is for the voter to be more educated about who we're voting for.
I'm Amanda Green Hawkins, and I am a lawyer with the Steelworkers Union, or more precise, Assistant General Counsel and the Director of the Civil and Human Rights Department. I'm not a native Pittsburgher. I've been here in Pittsburgh, though, for over 20 years. And I was born and raised in Jersey City, New Jersey. And what brought me here to Pittsburgh is my job with the Steelworkers Union. And I've been here ever since. Growing up in Jersey City was like growing up in the inner city, people would describe it. And if you had ever told me when I was little that I would be able to accomplish many of the things that I've accomplished or see and do many of the things that I've done, I probably wouldn't have believed you. My family was poor, working parents both in unions, good union jobs, health care benefits, and living wage and all that. But my dad had a bit of a problem with alcohol, and alcoholic to be more precise. And there was a time where my dad almost lost his job as a truck driver because he was an alcoholic. And his union fought for him and said, give him another chance. And that's what we do in unions. We fight for people's first, second, third chances. Everybody is worthy of redemption. Everybody's worthy of reform and opportunities. And so his union fought for him to have another chance to go to rehab and to overcome his problem and to get back to work. And that's what my dad did. And he was able to return to work after a period of rehab. And believe it or not, he worked another 20 some odd years without incident and was able to retire with his pension. And all of that came, all of this history and the importance of unions in my childhood came back to me when I was interviewing for jobs coming out of law school. And, like many people, I want to make the six figures, the big money at the big firm. And, growing up in New Jersey, I'm right across the river from New York City. So all of this is accessible to me. So I'm interviewing with a big law firm in the New York metropolitan area paying six figures. And the lawyer interviewing me asked me, how would I feel about busting up a union? And it just instantly clicked, like, oh, this is the work that they pay you a whole lot of money to do. And as someone who realized that my life was so different, or I was in a position where I was because of what unions meant to my family, I knew it wasn't work that I could do. To look at other people, look them in their face and tell them, essentially, you're a family. You don't deserve the same things that I and my family had growing up. You don't deserve to be in the union and fight for dignity and respect and a living wage and all that. I just knew it wasn't work I could do. And so I have never looked back and never went back to a big New York area firm or any big firm looking for a job. And I've been working with unions and fighting for workers ever since. And being in Pittsburgh, I have developed, there's a family I made because I came here and it was just me as a single person. And so I met my husband because of the work that I do. His dad and I actually work for the same organization. And when I was traveling out of town for work, I traveled to a place where his dad lived actually for a conference. And his dad had a big cookout at the house and invited everybody who was in town for the conference over to his home for a cookout. And so my husband's job was to chaperone everyone, show everyone the way from the hotel to who was then my colleague, but became my father-in-law, to my father-in-law's house. that was his job. And so my husband and I got married, and after about 4 or 5 years of a long distance relationship, we got married. My husband moved here, and like I said, there's the family we've made, and we have 2 children here, a 14-year-old boy and a 9-year-old girl, and they are how can I describe my kids? Prima donnas is one word I use to describe them. Their first world problems are earth-shattering to them because of the privilege that they have been able to grow up in. But I don't let that privilege that they've been able to grow up in, make them live in a world with rose-colored glasses, because I know that for my son, for example, who is a 14-year-old Black male, I know there are so many statistics about who he is, what he's about, who he could grow up to be, his life expectancy. And so I know that I have to also help him realize the world he's in and what he needs to be cognizant of living in his skin. And the same thing with my little girl. They are Black children here in America, and that comes with a lot of extra issues because of biases and the way that our systems treat Black and brown children, and just wanting to protect them from a lot of the pain that comes with that. Well, to run for judge in the Court of Common Pleas, you first have to be a lawyer, and that I am. But more specifically, when it comes to the Court of Common Pleas, it's the trial court here in Allegheny County. And you need a lot of skills, of course. And as a lawyer for the country's largest industrial union, I have certainly developed a lot of skills over a 25-year career that certainly have prepared me for the Court of Common Pleas. One of the things that I've had to do as a lawyer is travel throughout this country through different jurisdictions, different states, federal court or state court, or arbitration hearings, or state or federal agencies, mediations, you name it, I've had to do it. And many times the issues that I'm working with are not static. Sometimes they are, where everything that's happened has already happened and we're dealing with a problem, how to get it resolved. But sometimes I'm dealing with problems that are dynamic and still developing, and other problems spinning off from there. And in the Court of Common Pleas, you have to be ready to work in any division, orphans court, criminal, civil, and family. You have to be ready to work in any of those divisions. Judge doesn't know where they're going to get assigned. And because I have had to spin on a dime and understand laws and different jurisdictions and research and write and all of that, I think what it has helped me do is develop the good ability to multitask and grasp legal issues very quickly, and to grasp the law surrounding those issues very quickly. And that's something that is certainly needed with the Court of Common Pleas. You don't know where you're going to get assigned, and you have to be ready and able to adapt at any given moment. And as a mediator, I had to work with people many times who weren't represented by a lawyer. And that happens a lot in the family division. And people need to be met where they are. And they have to have an understanding of the law and the situation. And you have to be able to explain very well to them what's happening, what's going on. And that's important too, I think, so that people develop an appreciation for our judicial system, but also a level of trust in the system. That certainly is something that needs to be certainly something that we need to do is to build trust in our system. And I think that my background as a mediator, working with people who aren't represented, certainly allows me to bring that compassion and that ability to help people and to be able to explain things well to people. I think I also bring that to the table. And because of my experience as an adjunct law professor as well, working with the next generation of law students and explaining the law to them and doing the deep dives into policy behind the law. That's information, I think, that goes a long way to helping people understand why outcomes are the way they are. And those are the skills that I can bring to the table to not only build up trust in the system, but to also make sure that people are treated fairly and receive that due process. Um, Due process is guaranteed by our Constitution, and it also needs to be guaranteed by the judges on the bench, not the process that they believe someone is due because of biases that they may bring with them. I should be running for the Court of Common Pleas, and I am running for the Court of Common Pleas because we're living at a time where we need good judges on our bench. We need judges who we can trust on our bench, judges who are going to apply the people's laws that we have fought for, and to also be that check on the executive branch and the legislative branch. With this three-legged stool system of government, if one leg is weak, the whole thing crumbles. And we need that strong judiciary. We're living at a time where we have an executive branch that is really pushing the limits or testing the limits of what their authority is and testing the limits of what the authority of the court is. And unless we have judges who will stand up to that, like I said, we have a problem in our system. It just falls apart. And I certainly have the experience and definitely the integrity to do the right thing, whether anybody's looking or not, to stand up for our constitutional democracy. I think that I should run for a Court of Common Pleas, or I am running for the Court of Common Pleas, because this is the court where our neighbors go when they have a dispute that needs to be resolved and they want to be heard. It is the court where we go on election day when someone is being disenfranchised, and we are there to make sure that they can exercise their right to vote. This is the court where we go if someone is being denied the right to choose and needs a judicial bypass proceeding to be heard and a decision to be made about whether or not they can exercise their right to choose. This is the court where we go that has such a direct impact on our lives, and we need to have judges there with diverse backgrounds, diverse lived experiences, and judges who are good listeners. And I have each of those qualities, and that's what I plan to bring to the Court of Common Pleas, to make sure that people are heard, fully heard, and that decisions in their lives are fair and just. And this court is often the final answer for many people, because appeals can take a long time and they can cost a lot of money. And so the decisions made at this level have to be made with care and a certain level of discretion and also interest in people's lives. And this is what I will bring to the table. Bias is something that people have been complaining about in our courts. Our own interbranch commission here in Pennsylvania reports that people feel they're experiencing bias in our courtrooms. And that's another thing that I will bring to the table, some efforts to combat bias in our courtrooms. We have to challenge ourselves every day, and that's something that I do, is challenge myself every day about decisions I'm making to make sure that bias is not entering the analysis and decision making as much as possible. We have an election coming up, and there's mail-in balloting, and then there's also the in-person voting day, May 20th. And I know that in these odd year elections, many people don't show interest, many people don't turn out. And there's so many people who don't think that their vote matters or that their vote counts. And I would say, let's try to disabuse you of that notion, because everybody's vote counts. And it's just so important to turn out. And yes, one vote can make a difference. And I think that if people really understood the impact of voting, not just on election day, but in their lives as a whole, that it could help with, help increase turnout in elections, help increase interest in elections. And just an example of what I'm talking about, everybody knows that the US Census is taken every 10 years. This is how we find out how many people we have in the country or within a certain neighborhood. And this information is used when budget decisions are being made by our legislators and how much money each area is given because of the number of people who live there. Well, in the in-between years, one of the ways that we look at population numbers is based on how many people are turning out to vote. So if you have a neighborhood where only 5% of the neighborhood is turning out to vote, when legislators are looking at budgets and how to carve up money, it looks like hardly anyone lives there. Whereas if you are in a neighborhood with high voter turnout, let's say 75, 80%, that's where more money, more funds are going to be directed because there's a greater population there to serve. And so I tell people all the time, don't look at voting only as something that you don't want to do because you don't think your vote counts. Yes, your vote counts, and the fact that you even show up to do it makes you count. You should vote for me for Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas because I am uniquely qualified to be a judge in the court. I am the only candidate who has experience as a union lawyer, and I am the only candidate considered to be a union lawyer by the country's AFL-CIO. That means something. It means that I have a level of expertise in the area of the law, in an area of the law that has required me to be able to learn and apply law in various jurisdictions at the state and federal level. It also means that I have had this diverse experience in different proceedings around the country, whether it be arbitrations or state or federal agencies. And it also means that I can turn on a dime when it comes to looking at legal issues and applying the law. And that's something that I have had to do throughout my career. The Court of Common Pleas has 4 divisions, and you never know where you're going to get assigned as a judge. And you may not spend your entire career as a judge in just one division. You have to be able to adapt and to adapt quickly to the different areas of the law in each division. And because of the experience I have, I can certainly bring that to the table. I am also someone who is committed to confronting and addressing bias in our judicial system. Bias means that people aren't being fully heard. And in the Court of Common Pleas, decisions are being made about people's lives for the rest of their lives. And when bias enters the decision making, people are at risk. The people around them are at risk of having bad decisions affect them for the rest of their lives. And as someone who has worked in civil and human rights and understands fairness and what justice really means, I think it's very important, I know it's very important, that we confront and rid our judicial system of bias as much as possible. Also, I am another, excuse me, I am an attorney who brings a diverse perspective from being a parent, from being someone who has worked with the various organizations around Allegheny County that advocate on behalf of marginalized people and poor people in our communities. And that compassion is something that I will also bring to the table. Experience, integrity, and compassion, along with the judicial temperament, treating people with dignity and respect. That's why you should vote for me. And I ask you humbly for your vote on Election Day or on your mail-in ballot before then. I'm first on the ballot.